National 5s. Today we are going to start the last subtopic of Unit 1, which is respiration. At the start of the PowerPoint I have put the course specification. These are really helpful to read through and check your knowledge against. Today we're going to look at the chemical process of respiration. So we're going to look at a series of reactions which are all controlled by enzymes. Then you're going to be able to describe these. So what is respiration then? So to release the energy from food that we eat, living cells in both plants and animals must carry out this process of respiration. So the molecules which are broken down to release energy are known as our respiratory substrates. And the main respiratory substrate is glucose, which is a type of carbohydrate. Sometimes fats and proteins can also be broken down if glucose isn't available, but we're just going to talk about glucose. So glucose is a type of sugar and it is broken down into its elements. So our overall reaction for respiration is glucose plus oxygen gives us water and carbon dioxide. And to do this, the cells have to go through a series of enzyme-controlled reactions. So our glucose and our oxygen are the raw materials, and our carbon dioxide and our water are our waste products. And the purpose of this reaction is to release energy. What cell activities need energy? So when an energy-rich substance such as glucose is gradually broken down during respiration in a living cell, it releases energy that is used to regenerate a molecule called ATP, which we're going to learn a bit more about. As a result, many molecules of ATP are present in every living cell, and this makes energy immediately available for energy requiring processes such as these on our screen here. So we've got muscle cell contraction, we've got cell division, protein synthesis, the transmission of nerve impulses, and our active transport. What form does this energy take? We say that respiration produces energy, but what is that energy? So here we need to talk about the role of ATP. So ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, and it's a chemical found in all living cells. It consists of a molecule of adenosine and three inorganic phosphates groups attached in a chain-like fashion. And ATP acts as a type of energy management system in the cells. So it's a bit like money placed into a bank to keep, and it's withdrawn when it's required. So energy can be banked in the molecules of ATP, and when it's needed, that energy is then released. So the molecule of ATP is held together by bonds, and the final bond holding this end inorganic phosphate group can easily be broken and reformed. So when energy in the cell is required, this bond attaching the end inorganic phosphate is broken and that releases energy. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the chemistry of respiration. So the chemical energy stored in glucose is released by all cells for a series of enzyme-controlled reactions known as respiration. And respiration takes place in several stages. The first stage always occurs in the cytoplasm, but the further stages are dependent on whether or not oxygen is available. Aerobic respiration is a term given to the type of respiration which involves the breakdown of glucose in the presence of oxygen. Carbon dioxide and water are the products of this process. The process of aerobic respiration starts when a molecule of glucose is broken down into two molecules of pyruvate in the cytoplasm. And this happens as a series of reactions, each of which is controlled by enzymes. During this series of reactions, enough energy is released to synthesize two molecules of ATP. Like glucose, pyruvate also contains a lot of energy locked up in the molecule. Each molecule of pyruvate moves into a mitochondria, and here a further series of enzyme-controlled reactions gradually breaks down the pyruvate to release this energy. During these reactions, carbon dioxide and water are formed, and a further 18 molecules of ATP are synthesized for every pyruvate, so we get 36 in total. The carbon dioxide and water are released as the waste products of respiration. This second stage of respiration requires oxygen to take place, so we call it aerobic respiration. If oxygen is not present for stage 2, a different type of respiration takes place, and we call this fermentation. The process begins in the cytoplasm in exactly the same way as an aerobic respiration, where one molecule of glucose is broken down into 2 molecules of pyruvate and 2 ATP are synthesized. However, due to the lack of oxygen, the pyruvate remains in the cytoplasm and the mitochondria does not become involved. Pyruvate molecules are partially broken down by a different chemical pathway, depending on the type of organism carrying out the respiration. This diagram shows respiration without oxygen in multicellular animals. This type of respiration can occur in human muscle cells when a very heavy demand for more energy occurs and the oxygen supply is insufficient to meet the demand. For example, when you sprint really fast. In this case, pyruvate is only partly broken down, forming lactic acid in a process that we call fermentation. As the concentration of lactic acid builds up in the muscle cells, it causes muscle fatigue and pain. And since the muscles become inefficient, this process can only be maintained for a short period of time. In order to get rid of the lactic acid, oxygen is required. When oxygen becomes available, the lactic acid is converted back to pyruvate, which can then enter the mitochondria for aerobic respiration to take place. Since the lactic acid can be converted back into pyruvate, fermentation in animal cells is described as a reversible process. It is not a very efficient process, however, as no ATP is produced during the breakdown of pyruvate. So one molecule of glucose yields a total of 2 molecules of ATP in the fermentation in animal cells. Fermentation can occur in plant cells also that are deprived of oxygen. For example, in waterlogged root cells and also in microbes such as yeast cells, which are important in the brewing industry. This involves the breakdown of pyruvate to ethanol, which is a type of alcohol, and the release of carbon dioxide gas. Again, no more ATP is formed in this reaction. As carbon dioxide is released in the breakdown of pyruvate, fermentation in plants and microbes is an irreversible reaction. Again, it is not a very efficient process as no ATP is produced during the breakdown of pyruvate. So one molecule of glucose yields a total of 2 molecules of ATP in the fermentation in plant and microbes. So here we have some summary word equations for each of the process. So at the top we've got our aerobic respiration, and then we've got our fermentation in yeast and plants and in animals. Throughout the PowerPoint there are a few tasks for you to complete. Here you're comparing aerobic respiration and fermentation and filling out the table, and there are also a few slides of test your knowledge questions. I will post the answers to these next week at some point, so these are for you to complete and test your knowledge, but they do not need to be submitted.